These guys have lost their minds. It's gotten to the point where I don't even know if people can even afford to play video games anymore. We just got slammed with a tidal wave of new releases, the vast majority of them premium priced. We just saw consoles raise in price for the second time this year. And Nintendo's out here selling 18-year-old games for $70. Oh, and also announcing a paid DLC for a game that doesn't even exist yet. We already have quality issues with these games. We can't even trust the vast majority of them to be playable when they launch. We've seen more industry layoffs, and it feels like this industry has employees, and yet regardless of the failed launches, the stumbles, the random issues, and just the flat-out bad games, it feels like we just keep seeing more games at an infinitely increasing rate, and it begs the question, who's going to buy it all? I can't be the only one that's sitting here thinking to myself, there's just way too many games that have come out this year. And while we've had some good ones, some really good ones, it's getting to the point where even they're going to go on the back burner. And while that's great, we can go ahead and buy and play games whenever we want to. That's not how this industry is built. This industry is built for day one sales, and I do not think people are going to show up for it. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about how unaffordable this hobby has become. I want to talk about how regardless of the quality of some of these games, they're still going to fail in sales, and how at some point the AAA industry really needs to learn from their indie competition because the price isn't right. But before that, Displate heard I like Path of Exile, and I think they took it a little bit too seriously. Displate has officially licensed Path of Exile 2 metal prints, and as somebody who is way too deep into that game, this is a dangerous development because Path of Exile has some of the sickest art in the genre, and now I've got those prints sitting up in my office. And I'm not saying that it's guaranteed for better loot, but I do have a new poster to be able to pray to every time I need a divine drop. If you haven't tried Displate out before, they make high-quality metal posters that mount magnetically, no tools, no wall damage, and they're so easy to be able to install and swap out whenever you move. They've got over 1 million designs across anime, games, movies, and more, including textured and limited edition prints. Between this new Path of Exile line and all of the other additions and drops that these guys have sent me, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Displate, I love your product, but seriously, I have nowhere else to put them right now. I'm starting to look at my ceiling at this point. So if you like the designs or maybe want to check out something else, go to displate.com/L/legendary drops to get the best deal. Check the pinned comment and the link in the description. I feel like this has simultaneously been one of the best years for games, but one of the worst years for actually gaming. We've been hit with a tsunami of awesome releases, some of the most anticipated titles in years, but also some of the worst performance issues, constant demands for higher-end hardware, and news almost every month about price hikes. It's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff looks great on paper, but can people even run these games, let alone even afford the hobby at all anymore? Take Borderlands 4. As much as I think it's one of the strongest entries in the franchise, it ran like garbage at launch. It still runs like garbage right now. Sure, if you're sitting at a $5,000 PC, you can brute force your way into a decent experience, but that's not the reality for 99% of players. On console, the optimization is so bad that the game's performance would degrade every half hour until you were forced to restart the game just to keep it playable. The longer you played, the worse it got. It has become such a mess on console that Gearbox has had to suspend the Switch 2 release indefinitely, even after already taking pre-orders. At least these guys refunded the money, but come on, how is it acceptable to sell a version of your game on hardware before you even know it can run? And this isn't just a Borderlands 4 problem. Almost every major AAA release in the past 5 years has shipped with significant performance issues, unless it's a console exclusive where the hardware is fully optimized for specifically that game. The industry is now building games for a performance ceiling that doesn't actually exist in the market right now. That's not just for consoles, but for most PC setups, and it's just leaving us in the dust. So if the current hardware is already struggling, if these consoles are already being dated and they're out of relevance, then riddle me this. Why is Xbox raising the price of their console for the second time in 5 months? Back in May of 2025, Xbox made one of the biggest price hikes in industry history. Consoles went up by 20 to 27%, accessories went up by 8 to 15%. The bottom of the line Series S jumped from $300 to $380, where the top of the line Series X went from $600 to $730. Now, just 5 months later, they've done it again. The Series S is now $400 and the Series X is now $800. And those numbers might not sound insane at first glance, but for consoles, machines that are supposed to be the casual, affordable entry point into gaming, that is pushing way outside of the comfort zone of most players today. And if this is what counts as the accessible option, I honestly do not see how this hobby is going to stay accessible for very long. In an article from The Gamer written by Jack Coleman titled "Ex-Blizzard Boss Says Tariffs Are Just an Excuse for Xbox to Raise Prices," the writer Jack Coleman writes, The prices of both the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S are set to rise in the United States, with Microsoft blaming the changing macroeconomic environment for the price hikes. In other words, Xbox is blaming the ongoing tariffs for the price increases. Ex-Blizzard president Mike Ybarra is critical of these price increases, saying that Microsoft is using tariffs as an excuse to try to squeeze more profit from Xbox. Ybarra had described the first price increases as justified given the sudden implementation of tariffs, but he believes this new price increase is more cynical. Console price increases are not tariff issues, they are profit issues, his post reads, and the reason why profits are not where they should be is a far, far deeper issue versus the tariff excuse. He later added tariffs went up once, so that does justify a single price increase. An excuse to continue raising prices with no new increase in tariffs is simply a different problem, and they are going to make consumers continue to pay for those problems. Now, some of you guys might remember this. I mentioned this back when I first covered the first round of price hikes in May. Tariffs or no tariffs, these increases are an excuse to squeeze more profit out of their customers. Yes, tariffs have always been a part of the conversation. Chinese-made consoles make up a bulk of that side of the U.S. imports, but the reality is these companies are just using them as cover. They are the ones who consolidated their manufacturing in one country to save money. They are the ones that let themselves be exposed to trade policy, and now we are the ones that are footing the bill. And we know that is the case because when some of these tariffs have been delayed, rolled back, or even came with exemptions, prices never went down. Not a single time. Because these prices were never about faithfully tracking the tariffs in the first place. It was just about ratcheting up the baseline and then never walking it back. And it's not just me saying it. When even someone like Mike Ybarra is calling these price hikes money grabs, you know the excuse is starting to wear thin. Moves like this are just making gaming a hostile hobby to get into. These price hikes, tariffs or not, are not keeping pace with wages, and people just simply can't afford it. Worse off, the quality of these games is not rising with these prices either, so why would anybody want to buy into this? And it's not just Xbox doing it to their customers, everybody's doing it to their customers. Look at Nintendo. They already tested the waters with Mario Kart World at $80. Now they're turning around and they're asking $70 for a Switch 2 bundle of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Two games that are over a decade old with no new content, just upscaled visuals. And yet they're asking for a brand new release price. And if you guys thought it stopped there, well, you'd be wrong because Nintendo is launching Pokemon Z and A at $70. But during their latest Nintendo Direct, they made an announcement for a day one DLC that you can pre-purchase right now for another $30. That means if you want the full game on day one, you're looking at $100. And it doesn't even end there. It doesn't even end with the sticker price. Most of the content is still going to be locked behind another wall, Nintendo's online subscription. If you do not pay for that, well, you're not going to be able to access all of the rewards or evolutions that are going to be tied to the DLC. Yes, Nintendo is literally paywalling Pokemon evolutions now. In an article from IGN titled Pokemon Legends ZA's $30 Mega Dimension DLC pushes the price of owning every Mega Evolution to $100 on the Switch 2, Tom Phillips writes, Nintendo's decision to announce costly DLC for Pokemon Legends ZA and lock 3 Mega Evolutions behind an active Nintendo Switch Online subscription has prompted fan complaints over the amount of money required to unlock every creature. Last Friday's Nintendo Direct included the announcement of Mega Dimensions, a $30 DLC that includes additional story content and allows fans to encounter 2 new Mega Evolutions, Mega Raichu X and Mega Raichu Y. 3 other Mega Evolutions were also confirmed for the Kalos starter Pokemons, Delphox, Chestnut, and Greninja, with the small print revealing that these would only be available post-launch as rewards for competing in online ranked battles, which requires a Nintendo Switch Online subscription. With Pokemon Legends ZA already at $70 on the Switch 2 or $60 on the original Switch, fans were quick to note that the $30 Mega Dimension DLC, announced weeks before the game's launch and available to pre-order already, pushes the price of owning every Mega Evolution to $100. On top of that, the need to have an active Nintendo Switch Online subscription only adds to the costs involved, and with each of the 3 granted over subsequent in-game seasons, players will need to keep their Switch Online active for multiple months and win ranked battles to unlock the lot. I just find this utterly ridiculous. We have now reached the point where Nintendo isn't just trying to strangle the industry with lawsuits and patents on basic gameplay mechanics. They've also been the first to jack up the base price of games to $80, and now they're paywalling the very identity of their own series. Evolutions are not bonus content, they are foundational, yet here we are with a $30 DLC on top of a $70 game, and if you want it all, you're still forced to keep up a subscription service while they drip feed mechanics back to you. I can't believe I'm saying this. Nintendo is worse than Activision. It's absolute whiplash. The company that sells itself as the family-friendly, consumer-safe option is squeezing its players harder than anybody else. And here's the part that really exposes just how broken this has all become. Because for the price of Pokemon and its DLC, you could buy Silksong, Expedition 33, and Hades, all of this year's strongest contenders for Game of the Year, and still have money left over. I mean, I guess this is where we're at right now, paying more, getting less. And if this is what's passing for normal now, then maybe the question isn't how much people are going to pay, it's how fast they're going to walk away. The amount of Pokemon that I played as a kid is indicated by my glasses prescription, which is that I am legally blind. That Game Boy never left my hands, and never in all of my years, I never thought we would see the day where Nintendo would paywall Pokemon Evolutions. Nintendo fans, Pokemon fans, the people that are defending this, listen to me for just a second. You are one step removed from seeing your Pokemon evolve and getting a pop-up that says $15 to proceed or cancel evolution. Who's that Pokemon? It's money. It's money is who it is. This is just crazy. The Xbox price increases too. If you want sustainable gameplay on a console in 2025, you are paying $750 to $800. That is just insane to me. And what does that mean for the next series of consoles? We're looking at $1,000 a pop. We're looking at $1,200 a pop. That's PC territory. At that point, you have completely excluded the casual audience from being able to play any video games anymore. And that's my biggest worry when it comes to some of this stuff. Maybe that's what these guys want. Maybe they just want to squeeze the willing as much as they possibly can and then push the unwilling into subscription services, into free-to-play, into mobile, into places where I can't get $800 out of you today, but I can definitely get $800 out of you over the course of a couple of months. Things are just going too fast. This is way too aggressive, and I just do not see this being sustainable for these guys. I do not see it working out that well for them. And that brings me to a whole other issue. The sheer volume of games that we've seen released this year. And it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. When you stack these record-breaking prices on top of a bloated release schedule, it stops being exciting and it starts feeling impossible. And if it feels impossible for somebody like me who doesn't actually have to pay for most of these games, I still end up paying for most of them anyway, just to clear the bias and whatnot. But there are only so many players. There's only so many paychecks. And this industry has convinced themselves that those limits don't exist. When I sat down to write for this video, I realized something insane. In just the last couple of weeks, we've had Silksong, Borderlands 4, Dying Light the Beast, Silent Hill F, Hades 2, and now Ghost of Yotei that's all dropping within days of each other. That is a stacked lineup, and for the most part, most of these games are reviewed pretty strong. The fan reception has been pretty high, but looking ahead, seeing Battlefield 6 set for October, as well as a couple of other big releases before the end of the year, I just can't see how all of these games are going to sell. Not because they're bad, but just because most people are still playing one of those games that just dropped, or they just don't even have the time or the money to even start any of these games. And I think this is where the problem really comes into focus, because out of all of those games, 4 of those games are $70 each. Silksong was $20, Hades 2 was $30, and if I had to put money on it, I'd probably say that Silksong and Hades 2 are probably going to outsell the rest, simply because you can buy both of those games for less than the cost of one of the others. But buying all of these games would run you over $300, and that's just not happening for the majority of people right now. And the longer this release schedule continues to accelerate like this, and the more months we see that are packed like this, the more difficult it's going to become to avoid a problem. Now, look, I get it. Not everybody is going to buy every single game. Not everybody's going to buy all of these games all at once. Not everybody's going to be interested in a lot of these games. We all have our tastes and interests, but the expectation from the industry is to reach beyond their core audience and scoop up as many people as they possibly can, and I just don't see that being realistic. That mindset is exactly why we've seen so many projects canceled, studios shuttered, and wave after wave of industry layoffs. This industry hasn't come to terms yet with the sheer number of barriers that they have built between players and their games. The first barrier should be obvious. It's whether or not these games are even playable at launch. Take some of the highest rated multi-platform releases this year: Monster Hunter Wilds, Silent Hill F, Metal Gear Solid, Borderlands 4. Each one of them had major technical issues, and it's not just because these games are bad. Most of these games are actually pretty good, but it's because these developers are assuming that everybody is playing on top-end hardware, but that's just not the reality. These games aren't only demanding a sticker price, they're also demanding the newest console refresh, a PlayStation 5 Pro, an Xbox Series X, a PC with a 40 series GPU and the most cutting-edge CPU, add frame generation, AI-driven features, Unreal Engine 5 workloads, and suddenly you're not just paying to own the game, you're now paying thousands of dollars just to make sure that you can even run them. Now, going back to Borderlands 4, the CEO has finally gone quiet now that multiple hardware reviewers like Hardware Unboxed, Digital Foundry, and Gamers Nexus have stepped up and torn the game apart. They outright challenged Randy Pitchford to repeat his claims about DLSS and frame generation on camera. And why? Because, well, the game launched in a disastrous state. Instead of taking responsibility, the CEO tried to act like it was everybody else's problem. His message was basically buy better hardware if you want to play our premium game that's made for premium players. And that's the attitude right there. It's not just Gearbox, it's the mindset of the entire industry. Come on, broke people. Skip your rent and buy a 5090 just to be able to run our cell-shaded looter shooter. That's the level of contempt that we're dealing with. That's the assumption that a lot of these people are running with. Hardware is not even the only barrier anymore. Just getting into some of these games comes with a maze of extra costs and hoops to be able to jump through. Half them want you to have a subscription service just to be able to access core features like Nintendo paywalling evolutions. Others are locking content behind season passes, online only, or deluxe editions. And there's always online DRM, launchers stacked on top of launchers, account linking across platforms. Every year, there's another layer shoved between the player and the game. And it's not just about buying the box anymore. You're buying the box, the subscription, the DLC roadmap, the console upgrade, and the privilege of troubleshooting performance issues on day one. And I think that's the bigger issue here. It's not just one game or one bad launch or one company that's pushing their luck or one CEO that's talking shit. It's an entire AAA ecosystem that's straining under its own weight. Publishers are flooding the market faster than customers can possibly even keep up with, stacking release after release as if money and free time are just infinite resources, but they're not. There are only so many players, only so many paychecks, and only so many hours in the week. This industry acts like this audience is bottomless, but in reality, things are a lot more brutal than that. People have limits, and we're watching some of those limits get hit in real time right now. Prices keep rising, requirements keep rising, and yet the quality of the average release keeps sliding. It's not like there haven't been great games this year. There's been a lot of them, but they've been buried under an avalanche of other launches, day one patches, and performance nightmares. Even the games that deserve to succeed are being drowned out because the industry just refuses to pace itself. Instead of celebrating a hit, these publishers are just shoving the next one out the door, convinced that there's always going to be money waiting on the other side. I mean, how much longer can that illusion hold? Who's really buying 4 or 5 $70 games in a single month? Who's dropping $800 on a console upgrade or thousands of dollars on a PC overhaul just to be able to keep up with an arms race that the vast majority of us never even signed up for? At some point, something has to give, and you can already see that in the way that players are making their choices today. Indie and mid-tier games are thriving right now, not just because they're creative or unique, but just because they're sustainable. For the cost of one AAA release, you can grab 3 or 4 of these indie titles that actually run on the hardware that most people already own right now. And the studios that are selling those games, they don't need to sell them to everybody to be able to break even on it. They just need to make sure that their audience shows up for it. AAA does not work that way. Their budgets demand tens of millions in sales every single time just to be able to justify the expense. And when those sales don't show up, the result isn't reflection or restraint. It's layoffs, studio closures, and the same executives pointing their finger anywhere other than themselves. They'll blame the tariffs or the fans or changing market conditions, but they'll never actually admit the obvious problem, which is that their business model is broken. And that's where all this is heading, an unsustainable ecosystem, spiraling prices, spiraling requirements, spiraling expectations, all pushing against an audience that cannot and will not stretch its wallet forever. You can raise your prices, you can raise the stakes, you can do whatever you want, but it's only going to be a matter of time before this entire house of cards collapses. And when it does, it won't just be one studio or one release, it'll be the entire structure of AAA crashing into the reality that it's basically spent all of these years pretending doesn't exist. I was looking at the some odd top 20 games that released this year, and it's almost $1,200 if you bought every single one of those releases. That is just insane to me. That is so much money, and that's not affordable for a lot of people. And it would be less than $200 if you just bought the indies. It would be some odd $300 if you bought the indies and the AA games that came out. If that was the case, and those are the only games that you bought this year, man, you did really well. And bonus is you're actually able to run those games on nearly any piece of hardware right now. So that's pretty nice. Yeah, I think, and I've been saying this for a while, As this industry continues to increase their prices and increase the demand on hardware demands and put up more barriers in this industry, it's just going to make people more wary and critical of games before they're even released, or even after they're released in some cases. It's one of the reasons why I think we've seen so much culture warring around video games, and it's because I think a lot of people are looking for any reason not to be interested in these games. And it's not just because they hate video games, it's just because they're looking for excuses not to spend their money. That's really what it's coming down to. And in some cases, you actually have people that are looking forward to and actually kind of hoping that a game that they were interested in turns out to be bad just to be able to save themselves the money and also save themselves from the FOMO. And undoubtedly, you're going to have some of that almost every year with all these games. There's just too many of them. Beyond that, and this is something that kind of gave me a little bit of a pit in my stomach, and this is the one thing that kind of hates about one of the things. I'm sorry, man. I hurt my back, and I have been taking medication to be able to handle the pain that I've been going through. But what I was going to say is we've seen 5 or 6 really good games drop within weeks of each other. And while I think undoubtedly some of those games are going to do really well, some of those games are going to fail financially, and it's not even their fault. And it's just because people are overwhelmed. It's just too many games in the market. It's too much money to be spending. People are already going to be spending their time in one game. They're not going to be ready to go shoot over to another one already. And that ultimately ends up meaning layoffs, studio closures, less money to be able to put towards the next game that they're working on. And I squarely place the blame on AAA. It is their fault for the situation that the industry is in right now because they have flooded the market with so many games and so much marketing that it's made it financially impossible for most people to be able to keep up with all these releases. And at the exact same time, it's made it even more difficult for some of these games to be able to get the visibility that they deserve. I don't know. I don't know where this all goes. The only thing that I can think of is that hopefully it'll all just sort itself out financially. That these guys will see the numbers, they'll see their games underperforming and say, hey, maybe we should slow down a little bit. But this industry has a really hard time with learning the right lessons from some of their mistakes. So I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see on some of that stuff. But as much as I love the content and being able to cover all these games, this is just too much, man. This is just way too much. Maybe it's just because we're right before the holiday season. I guess maybe that makes sense, but not really to me. I just don't see the numbers working out. Not for paying customers. Too much of a good thing can still be too much. Anyway, my back hurts. This is all I can do for my video. I will talk to you guys later. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, comment down below. All of the engagement matters now in this new YouTube ecosystem that they've created for me. Isn't that awesome? Some dude just in a box somewhere can just decide your fate for no reason. Whatever. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Family, 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 family.